Welcome to all. We know that child development includes various perspectives. When one wants to understand the different perspectives in child development, we have to discuss different theoretical perspectives. When we look at the earlier perspective which you have listened through the various videos, most of the perspectives have confined to the development up to adolescent stage. But don't we have any development during this adulthood stage? Yes, surely we have. Hence the necessity to discuss about lifespan perspective. Today, I am going to discuss with you the lifespan perspective in child development and its educational implications. In this video, we will discuss the main points such as what is lifespan perspective, characteristics of lifespan perspective, educational implication of lifespan perspective. After listening and watching this video, you should be able to develop understanding about the lifespan perspective, to identify the characteristics of lifespan perspective, and to examine the educational implications of lifespan perspective. What does this lifespan perspective denote? The name itself states that this lifespan perspective consider human development is going to determine in multiple aspects. It's not possible to understood the development of a human being in a single framework. It is a field of study that examines patterns of growth, change and stability in behavior that occur the entire lifespan. When we look at the various stages from infancy to old age, how much changes an individual is going through. This perspective, it was put forward by Paul Bates and his colleagues. And in this perspective, Paul Bates and his colleagues developed a model by name Selective Optimization with Compensation Model, SOC model. What does it mean? This model states the interaction between three processes, that is selection, compensation and optimization. How these three processes are depicted. Selection processes serve to choose goals and life tasks, whereas optimization and compensation lead to enhancing chosen goals. The basic assumption of the selective optimization with compensation model is that the three processes form a system of behavioral action that generates and regulates development and aging. When we look at an individual who is becoming aging, they will select from a range of possibilities. What are the ranges? It comes two types. One, elective selection. Second, loss-based selection. What does this elective selection denote? It occurs when one chooses to reduce one's involvement to fewer domains as a result of new tasks. And for example, we can see that when aging comes, what happens? The older musicians, they will reduce their times of play, that is selection, and they will do their practice or increase their practice, that is optimization, and then they will always do the or play the instrument in a lower tone, that is compensation. So we can see that elective selection is happening in one's life, and the next one, that is the loss based selection. Here this selection occurs when one reduced involvement in some other activities as a result of expected losses in personal or environmental resources. For example, a child who wants to become a doctor, what is happening is that student may reduce his or her involvement in extracurricular activities and concentrate in studies. So that is one example for loss based selection. And the next term, compensation. It means the use of alternative methods when the earlier preferred methods lost its effectiveness. For example, we can see that this musician who cannot play earlier in a major speed, so they are concentrating on repetition and try to make the music in a better way. And the next one, optimization. It is the application of methods adopted to achieve selected goals. Optimization involves minimizing losses and maximizing gains. Here I can give you an example from a person who is impaired, visually impaired. That individual cannot read with his own ability. So how he will read? He will read through the help of Braille system. This is the example of optimization. Then we are going to discuss about the characteristics of lifespan perspective. Before entering the characteristics of lifespan perspective, when we look at some of the questions, or we can ask some questions to us itself. How does a child or an individual changes from childhood to adulthood? How does the achievement motivation, interest and aptitude of an individual changes from childhood to adulthood? So in order to understand these changes, what is needed? Lifespan perspective is very much needed. I am inviting your attention to the characteristics of lifespan perspective. When we look at the key features, we can see that the first feature is development is a lifelong process. It cannot be stated that it will be confined to childhood or adolescence. No, not at all. It is a lifelong process. It rejects the traditional notion that childhood is the main period of development or adolescence is the main period of development. There is no age period that dominates development, and development is best seen in the context of the whole lifespan. For example, spiritual development. We cannot tell that the child doesn't have any spiritual development. Surely, the child's spiritual development is differing from the adult spiritual development. So, spiritual development is taking place throughout the life of an individual. Coming to the second characteristics feature, we can see that development is multi-dimensional. At every age, mind, body, interest, emotion and relationship change and affect one another. Development occurs at various dimensions such as physical, psychosocial, cognitive dimensions. We cannot confine the development in one particular dimension, whereas we can see the physical changes is happening throughout the lifespan, the cognitive changes is also happening throughout the lifespan, the psychosocial and moral changes is also happening throughout the lifespan. Each dimension has various components. For example, take the case of memory. Are we having the same memory from childhood up to the old age? Not at all. The memory is reducing. Sometimes we may tell that at the early adulthood stage, middle adulthood stage itself, memory starts diminishing. Take the case of thinking, intelligence, information processing, attention. These are some of the components of cognitive dimension, whereas it doesn't remain the same till the end of one's life. Coming to the third characteristics, that is development is multi-directional. Different capacities show different patterns of change over time. Development involves both growth and decline. In one's lifetime, some dimensions expand and others shrink. So that we can say that development is multi-directional. For example, acquiring one language in early developmental stage is easy than acquiring another language in later developmental stage. Coming to the next characteristics feature, that is development is characterized by lifelong plasticity. What do we mean by plasticity? Plasticity refers to the capacity to change in response to positive or negative environmental influences. One's capacity is not predetermined. Through practice, many skills can be improved. So, plasticity continues into later life, that aging process is not fixed but rather can be changed considerably depending on the individual's experiences. For example, older adults who regularly engage in mentally alert activities such as playing chess, participating in debates, etc., have less chance to develop Alzheimer's disease. There is a normal complaint among the old age people, elderly people. They are telling that their remembrance, their memory power is reducing day by day. But those adults, old age people who are engaged in different types of brain related activities, their mental capacity is increasing, their memory power is increasing. So, we can see the changes that is happening among them. And the next characteristics feature is development is the result of multiple causation. Human development is the product of many interacting causes, both inside and outside the person, both biological and environmental. Some experiences are common to all at similar ages, others are common to people of a particular generation, and still others are unique to the individual. For example, two children growing up in the same family will have different experiences if one is a differently abled child and the other a normal child. But we cannot say that the context is different. The context is the same. They are nurturing in the same family setup. Then why is it like that? Because one is a differently able and the one is a normal child. So, the perspective, the way they are looking at and how they can involve or engage in activities, it is different. Coming to the next feature, that is understanding development, requires multiple disciplines. And here we know that we cannot confine that psychology alone can make us to understand the human development of an individual. No. Human development is influenced by various aspects ranging from biochemical reactions to historical events. Hence, the study of human development is more interdisciplinary. When you take the anthropology discipline, you can see how human beings are originating and how their development is. In the sociological perspective, the human development is different. Psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, biologists, historians, etc. have something to contribute to unlock the mysteries of development throughout lifespan. For example, influence of family and school on the social development of child is differing. The home is the immediate surrounding where the child learns to live in a society, as we term family as the basic unit of social organization. Whereas coming to school, the child learns to interact with children who belongs to varied culture, religions, language, socio-economic status. Another example, that is influence of heredity and environment on the intellectual development of child, is differing. Coming to the next feature, that is development, involves both gain and loss. Gain and loss are intertwined during every phase of the lifespan. Paul Bates states that gain inevitably brings with it loss of some kind and loss brings gain. Gain and loss occur jointly. For example, as children gain command over language, they lose their ability to use babbled sounds. Take the case of a child in the infancy stage, how the child is speaking, just making some kind of babble sounds, ba ba, like that, some kind of sounds. But when the development is taking place, while going through different stages of development, the child gains command over language. Coming to the next feature, that is development is contextual. All development occurs within a context. It may be a family, an orphanage, a school, sometimes peer group, circles, cities, neighborhoods, and so on. And each of the contexts is influenced by historical, social, political, and cultural factors. Non-normative life events are unusual occurrences that affected an individual's life. When we look at the contextual development, for example, behavior of a child reared in a dysfunctional family is different from that of a child grown up in a normal family. We know that in modern societies, the family structure is changing, and the child who is grown up or who has been nurtured in an extended family, the experiences of the child is differing from a child that belongs to a nuclear family. And for the example of for non-normative life events, take the case of teenage pregnancy or loss of sight during childhood. Their experiences affect them, and it also affects the development of that particular individual. Another characteristics feature, that is development, is contextual. As a result of changes, contexts exert three types of influences: normative age-graded influences, normative history-graded influences, and non-normative life influence. When coming to the normative age-graded influences, it implies commonalities and experiences shared by individuals within a given age range. Example, attaining puberty, beginning schooling, retirement from job. Normative history graded influences are impacted by ideological, demographic and other social context variables. For example, take the pandemic situation, how it affects us. Terrorist attack, Indo-Pak war, these are examples. And these events affected the child. These events are the example for normative history graded influences. Now let us turn our attention to educational implications. Why should a teacher wants to know this lifespan perspective? When we think of educational implication, there are two important things. The first one, it exerts its influence in the concept and goals of education, and number two, in the instructional methodology. The goal of education in terms of either normative or differential views of individual development. A normative pattern of development has led to the focus on developmental tasks. On the contrary, the focus on individual differences emphasizes on differentiation and individualization of educational objectives. Educational goals must be responsive to social change. Through this perspective, the role of education that helps individuals to acquire the generic skills for adapting and optimizing their development in relation to social change and future change is possible. Here comes the importance of individualized instruction in education. Why? Because when the individual passes through different changes, related changes are occurring. There comes the importance of individualized instruction as well as developmentally appropriate classroom. The need for qualitatively different types of training for teacher trainees working with a different age group is also needed. Hope that you have understand what is lifespan perspective, the characteristics of lifespan perspective and its educational implication. Thank you.